The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
People have made it very clear that we will not leave our land.
A chorus of pushback a day after President Trump proposed a brazen plan to take over Gaza and permanently remove its people. How Middle East leaders are responding as the White House weighs in on what it means for U.S. military involvement and taxpayer money. Then ice storm incoming, just how many Americans are in the path of a winter weather advisory and how long it'll last. And the wide-ranging fallout of rising egg prices, just how many products outside of eggs themselves will be impacted. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. More than 100 million Americans under winter weather alerts across the United States as a snow and ice storm stretch from Nebraska all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. From tonight into tomorrow, ice storm warnings in effect for parts of West Virginia, Western Maryland, and Pennsylvania. These areas could see up to a quarter inch of ice. Tomorrow morning, commutes in cities like Chicago, Columbus, and Cleveland, Ohio could also be extremely dangerous with mixtures of rain, sleet, and snow. A couple of inches of snow is also expected up north in parts of Montana, North Dakota, and Minnesota. Meantime, a live look for you over Seattle, where on the west coast, heavy rain is expected tonight with snow at higher elevations off the coast. The storm extends south to just north of San Francisco. Tomorrow, another storm is expected to hit California, bringing more rain to the San Francisco Valley and snow to Oregon. And tonight, reaction continues to pour in after President Trump delivered a stunning policy shift on Gaza and the question of a future Palestinian state, proposing last night during a visit by Israel's prime minister that the U.S. should take over the enclave of Gaza, permanently moving out its 2.1 million residents and turning it into what Trump called the Riviera of the Middle East, a plan said to be one of the most audacious an American leader has advanced in years. Today, the White House appearing to walk back Trump's comments about permanent displacement while denying the takeover would call for U.S. boots on the ground.
It's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. That he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we can rebuild their home.
But the partners the press secretary is referring to are Jordan and Egypt, two neighboring countries that have already flatly rejected the idea, in addition to Saudi Arabia. One Palestinian politician speaking to CNN earlier said that the forced removal of an entire population would amount to nothing more than an ethnic cleansing.
That this is a war crime, that this is a criminal act, that this is the most serious violation of international law.
Meantime, on the ground, Gazans in the process of rebuilding have called the proposal offensive, and some Israeli civilians say it goes too far.
We lived under bombardments for a year and a half. After all this suffering, starvation, bombardments and death, we won't easily leave Gaza.
It's not realistic. It's not a solution. This is not the way to resolve this conflict between the nations.
Meantime, other Israeli and U.S. leaders are seemingly in a split camp, some praising the plan as creative, while others are trying to return the focus back to the hostages. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins reports.
President Trump's stunning proposal Tuesday that the United States take control of Gaza.
We're going to give people a chance to live in a beautiful community that's safe and secure.
Met with immediate resentment from some Palestinians like Yosef Munayer.
This is what we expect out of mafiosos, who are interested really only in their own power.
House Speaker Mike Johnson surprised but supportive.
It was a surprising development, but I think it's one that we'll applaud.
Dan Senor, a Pentagon and White House advisor for George W. Bush, arguing there's logic to Trump's approach.
We are on a path right now in Gaza to just rinse and repeat. Hamas is going to try and reassert control. The international community is going to help rebuild Gaza with Hamas there.
After the announcement, we sat down with Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell.
Is it realistic for the U.S. to go in and take control of Gaza?
In a few weeks, it's going to be more clear exactly how everything's going to work, what's going to happen.
She says Israel still wants to bring all the hostages home and establish peace.
I really hope we can resolve it and achieve our goals in diplomatic solution. We don't want a war.
But can you get rid of Hamas with a diplomatic solution?
Well, this is something that we're going to explore now.
Egypt and Jordan have strongly opposed any infringement on Palestinian sovereignty. Saudi Arabia immediately rejecting Trump's proposal. The Arab countries pushing for a Palestinian state.
Is a two-state solution still a possibility?
Look, you are telling me, and I understand that some leadership have been raising it, but you're telling me to reward the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust with the greatest reward, of a state. A state has failed.
And Amira, the King of Jordan will be here in Washington next week to meet with President Trump, and then the following week, the leader of Egypt will be here.
Wow, so much going on this topic. And Kayla, earlier today, Netanyahu met with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Do we know what they discussed?
Well, Amira, Hegseth did reiterate destroying Hamas and Hezbollah is very important to the United States. He added, "We welcome the elimination of those responsible for killing Marines in Lebanon," a reference to Hezbollah. Now, as for Gaza, the possibility of sending American troops to Gaza, Hegseth is standing lockstep with what we've heard from President Trump and the White House press secretary, not ruling it out and saying the Pentagon is prepared for all kinds of plans. Amira.
More to come on this for sure. Kayla Gaskins live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. A manhunt is on inside a mall in South Portland, Maine, looking for a gunman after one person was shot in what police are calling an isolated incident. We do not know the condition of the victim. The mall is closed, we understand, but the police say the public is not in any real danger at the moment. We'll continue to follow that story. Meantime, in New Albany, the manhunt to find a suspected shooter has ended. Police say Bruce Reginald Foster III has been taken into custody about 12 hours after 6 employees at the KDC One Cosmetics facility were shot. One of the victims has died. No update on the conditions of the others, who we understand are in the hospital. Authorities have confirmed Foster was an employee of the facility and called the shooting a targeted event. No motive has been identified. And tonight, 2 men accused of acting as middlemen in those pro-athlete burglaries have pleaded not guilty today in a federal court in Brooklyn. The men were charged with conspiracy and receipt of stolen property in connection to a series of burglaries, one of which may have been at NFL player Joe Burrow's home. Prosecutors are still sorting through the men's pawn shop, but believe they possessed $5 million in stolen property. One of the 2 men has been released on bond, while the other is still in custody. 2 planes collided today on the runway at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Luckily, no one was hurt. The wing of a Japan Airlines plane struck the tail of a parked Delta airline while taxiing towards the gate. The planes were in an area not under air traffic control. A further investigation is now underway. And a live look here at Washington, D.C., where right now a candlelight vigil is underway to honor the D.C. crash victims that lost their lives during a midair collision exactly 1 week ago. The vigil underway as the last pieces of the American Airlines jet and military helicopter involved are being pulled out of the Potomac River. Meantime, the investigation into the accident, revealing the Black Hawk helicopter involved was flying 100 feet higher than was permitted. As the National News Desk's John Gonzalez reports, the information could help answer critical questions about what went wrong.
Yeah, this could be critical information for the investigation, and we can tell you that a week later, all victims recovered, but the medical examiner's office is still working to positively identify one set of remains. Now, the NTSB has released this updated information showing that the air traffic control tower display here at DCA received a number of 300 feet. That's the height the Black Hawk helicopter was flying on Wednesday night, and that is too high. The data is rounded to the nearest 100 feet. In order to verify this information, crews need to recover the Black Hawk from the water, and that will become the focus today. Now, I spoke with retired Army Master Aviator Gordon Sumner, who flew over 5,000 hours. I asked him if he thinks protocol will change with these military drills.
You got to get to the Pentagon, and you're going to look right at the airport as you swing by, headed that direction. So, yeah, it's going to continue. They're just going to have to look at the procedures, look at the flight routes, look at potential safety factors, what could be done better, how do they control it.
Airline officials and radar data has also confirmed just 1 day before this deadly crash, a passenger jet had to abort its initial landing here at Reagan National Airport because another military chopper appeared in the flight path of that jet.
That was John Gonzalez reporting. 14 members of the figure skating community were among the 67 people killed in that crash. And tonight we are learning a figure skating benefit to support victims' families has been organized and will take place at Washington, D.C.'s Capital One Arena. The Legacy on Ice event scheduled on March 2nd, meant to be cathartic for attendees who will get to watch a host of performances from greats like Christy Yamaguchi, Scott Hamilton, and the like. Proceeds from the show go directly to a family support fund and other local relief organizations. Americans can expect to pay more for certain products from China now that President Trump's 10% tariff on Chinese goods is in effect. It could impact prices on a wide variety of products, including clothing, toys, and electronics. The U.S. received over $400 billion worth of Chinese imports in 2023. That's according to the Census Bureau. The U.S. Postal Service, meantime, says it's going to continue to accept mail and packages coming from China and Hong Kong, despite the tariff and the elimination of a customs exemption. This is a reversal from yesterday when USPS announced a ban on inbound packages from those places. The agency says it will partner with Customs and Border Protection to prevent delivery disruptions. A new executive order signed by President Donald Trump today seeks to prevent transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. It shows that the Trump administration is interpreting Title IX differently than the Biden administration did. Title IX bars sex-based discrimination in education programs or federally funded activities. And tonight, another challenge to President Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship. A second federal judge has blocked the order, ruling that it's likely unconstitutional. The order was initially paused by a different judge a few days after it was signed. The Trump administration is likely to appeal the latest decision. Coming up, the growing backlash against President Trump's efforts to dramatically restructure the federal government. Then the very latest in the shooting in Sweden that's considered the worst in the country's history. And later, what Utah officials believe is the cause of a concerning spike in drug overdoses in that state. We'll be right back. Congressional Democrats held a rally on Capitol Hill today to oppose President Donald Trump's efforts, along with the Department of Government Efficiency run by Elon Musk, to drastically cut federal spending, including but not exclusive to programs inside USAID. They say this foreign aid is a pillar of U.S. national security, economic stability, and global leadership.
Elon Musk's effort to dismantle the Agency for International Development is a gift to China, it's a gift to Russia, it's a gift to our adversaries around the world.
But what an overhaul of the federal government will look like when it's over is still up in the air. As national correspondent Matt Gelka reports, buyout offers and downsizing continues among multiple federal agencies.
Almost all United States Agency for International Development workers abroad are being pulled from the field and put on leave. The notice gives a Friday deadline for the foreign aid group known as USAID, and it's the latest in the sudden attempt to shut the agency down.
We got to spend money better. And if this executive branch and this White House is going to take the initiative to dig in and find those details and expose them, we applaud it. We're all on board.
USAID was one of the first targets of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. House Republicans are now on the attack, highlighting what they see as waste embedded in the agency's humanitarian spending. It includes $1 million to boost French-speaking LGBTQ groups in West and Central Africa, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, and $425,000 to help Indonesian coffee companies become more climate and gender friendly. The sudden shutdown, led by Musk, has gotten the support of the president.
He's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics.
It's also part of Trump's wider move to downsize government. 20,000 civil federal workers have accepted a buyout offer to leave their jobs. The Wall Street Journal reports the CIA is now the first intelligence agency to offer its entire workforce buyouts to try and, quote, infuse the agency with renewed energy. But critics say gutting the government workforce could mean getting rid of non-political employees who know how to actually run the government.
I don't think that there is any grand plan beyond these buyouts. It's certainly not a cost-cutting measure to throw away decades of experience and millions of dollars in training.
Democrats have repeatedly warned that some of these moves are unconstitutional, and workers' unions are skeptical that people taking the buyouts would actually get the roughly 8 months of pay they're being promised. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Matt, thank you. Over 100 undocumented immigrants are now back in their home country of India. Officials say they were deported on a U.S. military plane just today. Indian officials have expressed openness to the Trump administration's deportations. The third highest number of illegal immigrants come from India, behind Mexico and El Salvador. That's according to Pew Research Center estimates. A manhunt is on for two suspected shooters in Brussels. Shots were fired at a train station right in the city center. Authorities suggest it may have stemmed from an illegal drug transaction, and it's not terror related. It is believed the intended target was missed and no injuries have been reported. Meanwhile, in Sweden, the death toll from the shooting at an adult education center has risen to at least 11. At least 6 people are hurt. 5 of them life-threatening injuries. A gunman who is among the dead opened fire on the center 100 miles west of Stockholm on Tuesday. Investigators still have not released a possible motive yet, and this is considered Sweden's worst mass shooting. Getting charged more to order eggs. Waffle House just announced all of its locations will be adding a 50-cent surcharge to egg items on its menu because of soaring prices caused by the bird flu. But could this force other restaurants to do the same? The National News Desk's Jeff Harris reports.
Depending on how customers react to this new 50-cent surcharge, other restaurants could decide to opt in. But experts tell me it's not just restaurants. Certain grocery stores and individual products could also start seeing price increases and surcharges. Osman Kazan, a business expert, believes it's not unreasonable for Waffle House to add a 50-cent surcharge to egg items on its menu, since egg prices are up over 50% since November.
For some restaurants, it's 40 50% of their menu includes some kind of egg.
Waffle House says the surcharge that went into effect on Monday was triggered by the bird flu, which has widely affected the chicken population, causing an egg shortage and prices to soar.
They basically want to reflect that cost of the supply cost to their customers.
Kazan says while he wouldn't be surprised if other restaurants begin adding a similar surcharge, certain items that use a large quantity of eggs might also start to see a price increase.
Pasta prices, some cakes, wherever the eggs are used as an ingredient.
Saloni Farastavastani, a marketing expert, tells us if egg prices stay where they are or go up, poultry will likely see a bump as well, both in the grocery store and possibly on menus.
If the avian flu is not controlled, then we might see even poultry prices go up.
But if the egg shortage continues, Vastani says she doesn't think these surcharges will become permanent. Instead, restaurants will be forced to adjust.
I would suspect that a lot of restaurants will also be looking at adding alternatives in their recipes to eggs.
Now, in December, the average price per dozen eggs nationwide hit $4.15, and the Department of Agriculture predicts prices will soar another 20% at some point this year. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. And coming up, the new steps Texas is taking to help the Trump administration with its immigration crackdown when we come back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin in Texas, where officials are ramping up immigration arrests.
The governor says it's time to take action now that he has a partner in the White House who is working to end the border crisis.
Calling it a crisis is really designed to then justify actions like sending tactical forces, DPS, airplanes, helicopters to assist federal authorities in immigration enforcement.
Immigration attorney George Lobb says this is just a headline-grabbing effort to overblow the problem. The tactical strike teams include DPS troopers, special agents, and Texas Rangers, who will work with federal officers to track down 5,400 illegal immigrants who have active warrants across Texas. The teams will have support from DPS aircraft and intelligence divisions.
Without naloxone, an overdose can turn deadly.
I've had friends that have passed away not having one in the household.
Kim Carter-Brown always keeps naloxone with her, and just last week needed it to save the life of one of her son's friends. According to the most recent report from the Utah Medical Examiner, drug overdose deaths hit a record of 606 in 2023, with fentanyl driving the surge, rising almost 1,200% since 2014, and is now linked to nearly half of all overdose deaths. Dr. Jennifer Plum's Utah Naloxone provides the overdose reversal agent to partners all over the state, and she put out an alert that pills or blues are being reported to be associated with the spike in overdoses in the last week.
Hasbro is eyeing a medicine building on Summer Street in the Seaport District, according to the Boston Business Journal. Rhode Island has been battling to keep the toy maker in the Ocean State for months.
We know that a Rhode Island site's being considered as well by the board.
Governor Dan McKee says he's been in talks with the Hasbro CEO, and a presentation is ready to go for the company's board meeting this month.
I think our presentation was really strong, and I think that we've given Hasbro every reason to stay where they belong, right here in Rhode Island.
McKee specifically mentioned Providence, but didn't reveal exactly what the state's idea is. Hasbro says no decisions have been made yet.
Coming up, a dramatic rescue caught on camera. What happened when a man collapsed on a deck and lost control of his boat? We'll be right back. An amazing rescue in Florida caught on video. Take a look at this. A rescuer bravely jumped onto an out-of-control boat to save a boater suffering from a medical emergency. This all happened on Lake Diaz, right north of Orlando. The boat was spinning in circles, and the boater appeared to have collapsed on the deck. A Sheriff's Marine unit boat was able to get right next to the moving vessel. They nudged it just enough to get it closer to a downed tree near the shore. A rescuer then jumped onto the moving boat, turned the engine off, and began rendering aid to the boater. And the good news here is that that man is expected to fully recover. So we get a happy ending there. We'll leave it on that positive note. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.